For the first time in 9 years, the Ravens are 0-2. We'll talk about that and so much more on this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. Yes, welcome back to another episode, not of the Purple Rain podcast, the Purple Pain podcast episode. Yeah, episode 263 of the Purple Pain podcast. Let me just get through it. The Haranis Grasu episode, the Tristan Colon Castillo episode, could really use him on this line right now. The Bobby Williams episode, the Wally Williams episode, the Thatcher Cezale episode, the Ike Chukwu Ndukwe episode of the Purple Rain podcast. I definitely just butchered that. I am so sorry to him. But thank you all for coming through this episode of the Purple Pain podcast. I am Alex, simply ASN. That is Mr. Sutton Def. And you can follow us on Instagram at the Purple Rain podcast. Follow this guy over here on X or on Instagram at Sutton Def. Follow me on X as simply AS10 or on Instagram at simply AS10.prod. And most importantly, our sponsor, Manscaped. Yes, use code PRP for 20% off your whole order and free entire shipping. Should we just unbox real quick before we get into the pain?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Why not?
Okay. So we were sent some stuff from Manscaped. And I literally, mind you, have not opened it. I just don't want to show my address. I don't want to get docked. That wouldn't be fun. But, I'm going to make a mess. Whoopsies. But they did send us a lovely, jubbly Manscaped shirt, which you can see that guy Sutton Def is wearing. Yes, he's wearing it right now. It looks fan-freaking-tastic.
Absolutely.
Should be a model, honestly, in my opinion. Put him on runaway. But yeah, so I have it right here, and this looks freaking awesome. So, the scalp buffer. The freaking scalp buffer. This right here, man, I'm looking forward to using this. It's a silicone scalp scrubber. I don't know about you, but I have a mop on my head right now. All right, this will come in real big handy for this up here for me. Yeah, man, it is gonna be freaking awesome. Oh, yeah. Clear your head, wake your follicles, refresh your roots, and keep it clean. Keep it freaking clean.
I love this too. I've never actually owned one of these. I've always just kind of like scrubbed my scalp with like my fingers or whatever. I figure a lot of people do, but this is one of those products that like I wouldn't buy for myself.
Yep.
But like now that I'm gonna actually use it, I know I'm gonna be like recommending it absolutely everywhere. If you look at the box, it says 100% antibacterial silicone on this thing, stimulating bristles, flexible handheld design. You can definitely tell it looks sturdy as hell. A hanging notch on it, so you can hang it up in the shower if you like to. And of course, it's fully waterproof, man. So yeah, shout out to Manscaped. We appreciate this. And again, you can go on manscaped.com, get products just like the scalp buffer if this is your sort of thing. You can get 20% off plus free international shipping. Yes, sir. You can. Okay, let's see what else we got.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
There's more.
Holy crap, what is this? We're doing a live unboxing here, guys.
It's the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Now, I use shampoo and conditioner separate, for the hair, but can't smell it right now, but it is dermatologist tested, which is big because I have a dermatologist. I need to be tested. This skin right here is sensitive. Vegan, it's dye-free, is gluten-free, paraben-free, cruelty-free. It is free of everything. It is natural, and is a cologne fragrance refined, cleaning and revitalizing. So, wowzers. I mean, what more can you ask for?
What more can you ask for? The 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner says here, this dual action shampoo and conditioner cleanses and nourishes in just one step. Containing coconut water, green tea, aloe, turmeric, and sage, the non-greasy multitasking formula is naturally hydrating and rich in antioxidants for a revitalizing look and feel. Shout out to Manscaped, man. The 2-in-1 hair wash and conditioner. And this is 16 ounces too. This thing is not small. Like this thing looks like it'll last for a minute.
Yeah.
Scalp buffer, 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner. Of course, the Manscaped apparel as well. Big shout out to Manscaped. You can go on manscaped.com, save yourself again 20% off plus the free international shipping. So no matter where you are, all of our UK fans, people in Canada, Africa, Europe, wherever, Americas, of course, you can save yourself 20% off plus the free international shipping with our code PRP. Big shout out to Manscaped and shout out to Mod K Dog holding it down in the chat per usual. Says PRP is sponsored by Manscaped. That's right, Mod K Dog. We appreciate that. Also giving a big shout out to the hashtag replay gang. So yes, if you are not watching this episode of the Purple Pain, that's right, the Purple Pain podcast, episode 263. If you're not watching live and you're part of the hashtag replay gang, thank you so much for coming through to this episode. We appreciate that. Of course, let's see who else is in here in the live chat. We got Mod Roosh. Says, what's good, Rain Gang? Disappointing stuff, man. We got to do better. What's up, Roosh? I agree with you, bro. KLA Sports is in the building. What's going on, KLA?
What's going on, my brother?
It says, what's good, Rain Gang? Long time no see. We got Oscar Lilienthal in the house right now. I mean, he's already firing it off, man. This is going to be a vent session type of episode. You guys just wait. We do have a special guest who's going to come up here and kind of join us in the vent session. So stay tuned for that. Very special guest. Let me see. So we got Don in the house as well. It says Fire Harbaugh. I mean, those talks are heating out. We're going to talk about it. Dre is in the building. We got Thea Pennell in here. Says hit the like button, then hit the panic button. Rain Gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this Ravens talk, right? So before we get into the full vent session, we are going to do our second installment of our new segment that we have here on the Purple Rain podcast called Name of the Game, right? Name of the Game. So we debuted this last week after the Ravens versus Chiefs game. And basically what Name of the Game is we will give the name of the most recent Ravens game a fitting title in our eyes. And then we'll break down that concise title in kind of like a detailed explanation. So last week, I thought we had some good ones. I expect this week to be even better. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I guess I'll go ahead and kick us off here. So my name of the game for the Raiders at Ravens is going to be John Harbaugh, a series of unfortunate events. And this one was very fitting for me because, and this is kind of like a callback to a Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events for those of you guys who don't know. But this is fitting for me because there were a lot of errant coaching decisions in this one. We can go from the challenge flags that were thrown. We can talk about some of the play calling just overall, and I'm going to get into that in more detail in a little bit. But there were just so many things that happened down the stretch, even from the play calling with. Remember the what was it? The Charlie Collar on what? Fourth down? Or third and one, right? Yeah. And you tweeted about it. We decided to get cute, right? Like, unfortunate event. I mean, the pick to Rashad Bateman, unfortunate event. The decision to keep Patrick McCarry at right tackle after you saw Roger Rosengarten was holding it down, or at least being serviceable over there trying to hold down Max Crosby. So many unfortunate events that happened in this game that kind of led to us losing. And you kind of saw it. You saw the Harbaugh face again, right? The Harbaugh confused face on the sideline. It's a staple when the Ravens are about to lose a close game. It just happens that way. But yeah, man, all in all, a series of unfortunate events, and John Harbaugh is the main one that I'm looking at on this beautiful Monday. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. What do you think, though, Alex?
You know what? It's fantastic because it really was a series of unfortunate events. The challenges, like you brought up, they were really stupid. I think both of them were pretty obvious that we were going to lose them. And the first half, like, okay, like we lost a timeout. But at the end, I mean, in the second half, like it was very clearly a Devontae Adams catch. He's a top 5 receiver in the league. He's been doing this for years upon years. And like, that's his bread and butter. He's fantastic with the toe drag. So why are you going to sit here and challenge it? And then what was the Zay Flowers one too, I believe? When like they said he caught it and it bounced, it very clearly bounced off the ground. Like even when you go to commercial break and the announcer's like, oh yeah, that he's going to lose that challenge. It's like, what are you doing? Are you listening to the fans in the stands tell you what to challenge? If so, you can go up there and be with them. You can go very happily be a fan. Because I'm not going to lie, like I try to give him some slack, but I'm very just upset. I'm very upset. Sleepy John Harbaugh, bro. Like I'm gonna throw it back because like that's kind of like I hear him in these press conferences and he doesn't seem like he's all the way there. He just is very disconnected, I think, with his fan base, with his team. And as Dre brought it up about the whole Falele Cleveland stuff, like he wants to be right rather than win. And you're not going to be right starting Daniel Falele. I feel bad for Falele now because this is nothing against him. He's being played out of position. He is not a guard. He's a tackle. And he's going to take the downfall from a lot of people instead of the coach. I feel really bad for him in that aspect because it's very obvious he's not a guard. But this right here, series of unfortunate events, yeah, it's beautiful. Freaking beautiful.
Okay. All right. Your go. What's your name of the game?
Let me just pull it up real quick. It is what is the definition of insanity? Just you know what it is?
I do. I believe the saying goes, you do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results, and you expect different results. So yeah.
Where do I start here? The blown leads. There was a quote today. John Harbaugh, I think he said how if we're up in the fourth quarter, we're gonna have more blown leads. Are you proud of that?
He didn't say that, bro.
What did he say? Because I saw it was upon those lines. Like, okay, if you have the lead in the fourth quarter, you're gonna be blowing leads or something. I'll have to pull this up.
That's crazy. Nah, that is crazy. There's no way Harbaugh stood up there and said that. I mean, it's like, well, duh, yeah. Of course, if you get if you get walked down in the fourth quarter, of course you had to have had the lead at some point.
So
what do you say?
Ravens head coach John Harbaugh says that having more leads in the fourth quarter probably means you will lose more leads than most teams. Are we actually
proud of that?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's these leads I'll bring up by 28 points, up by 10 points against the Raiders. Gardner Minshew is 2-0 against us at home the past 2 years. We used to pride ourselves at the bank winning most of our games. You know what? I could take a loss to Ben. I take a loss to Peyton, to Tom, to Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew, a journeyman quarterback, a bang average, and he's out there coming back 10 points against us. This defense is secondary with all this money in the cap, and this is the worst passing defense in the league.
Yeah, quite literally.
How much money is invested?
Numbers-wise.
First round picks. Come on now.
Yeah,
definition.
Yeah. And kind of building upon your point here, one of the examples of the Ravens just kind of repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result was the first down runs to Derrick Henry. Lining up under center, Derrick Henry directly behind Lamar Jackson in the backfield, 1st and 10. Everybody in the stadium knows is going to Derrick Henry. We saw it last week against the Chiefs as well. There was no variety when using Derrick Henry, especially in the first half. It wasn't until the second half where they started to kind of heed some of my advice that I mentioned on this very show. Hey, maybe we should get Derrick Henry out in space. Maybe we should get some outside runs. Maybe we should throw it to him in the flat. And they started doing that. And what happened? He started going off, right? So, I mean, I like that adjustment that they made, kind of getting Henry going in the second half. We'll get into more of that. I really like your name of the game here, Alex, and that wraps up this segment of name of the game for the week. I want to go ahead and I want to bring up our guest here so we can kind of start our overall venting session, right? We want to get our biggest takeaways from this Ravens versus Raiders loss. The Ravens are 0-2. Like you said, the first time in 9 years that's happened?
Yep.
Bro,
yeah, 2015.
2015. Exactly, right. But yeah, we have a very special guest in the building. This guest is actually a member of the Purple Rain Pioneers, always been around. She is absolutely awesome with her content. Let me not mince any more words, man. Ravens Talk with Yolanda. She is here. She's backstage. I'm getting ready to bring her up. Let's go ahead and give her a nice warm welcome and welcome her to the Rain Gang stream. Yolanda, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Sutton and Alex, for having me. How are you both doing?
Could be better.
Doing about as we could be better. We could be better. But It is what it is. I mean, first time in 9 years to feel this 0-2 is different. It's definitely different. It's a different feeling, and it doesn't feel good for to say the least. So we wanted to bring you on. We wanted to have this vent session with you. We want to hear your biggest takeaways from the game. Before we get into anything, we have to bring up a super chat donation. We did get a super chat donation. This one's coming from Donovan Carter. What's going on, Donovan? Thank you so much for donating. We appreciate that. Making it rain here with the 5-piece on this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. As Harbaugh keeps getting coddled by the fans and the media, my brain cells got eradicated listening to that circus clown at the podium today. Clown show. Yolanda, I want to give you this one first. What do you think about this comment here? What do you think about Harbs and everything that's going on in the coaching staff?
I am just very disheartened by John Harbaugh and his lack of leadership of this team. The fact that we, as you mentioned, keep seeing the same thing repeated over and over, we're not getting different results, but yet we continue to expect it. That to me is like bumping your head against a brick wall and then wondering why you have bruises and a headache. It doesn't make sense. So I'm really upset. And I was one who kind of was on both sides of the fence for a while in terms of Harbaugh. I really wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But as most people know, I'm evidence and fact-based. What evidence do we have that supports us keeping John Harbaugh, puts us in a place to move this team forward and have a winning season and make it to the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a good point. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I try to give him benefit of the doubt, but I sit there, I'm like, okay, who else are we going to get? And I can't let that pull me back from the unexpected. And that's an offensive-minded coach who can get the most out of this two-time MVP. We haven't seen that yet. I still feel like we can get a little bit more creative. I look at what I know it's very short in the season, but the Saints with Clint Kubiak, he has had them looking like an all-star offense with, not as much talent as we have, I'd say. And Derek Carr and Lamar Jackson, two different quarterbacks, but I would love to see what we could do with a guy like that could open up this offense. And yeah, I mean, I hate to say I'm out on him, but it's hard to really defend the amount of blown leads. 10 points, and then somebody made that graphic of all these blown leads under Harbaugh, and it just gets worse and worse as you look at it. A couple last year, many the year before. It's common denominator.
Yeah. And you know what I think the main contributing factor to all of Harbaugh being coddled, as Donovan says here, I think the main reason you're seeing that is because at the end of the day, it's a good old boys club in the NFL and in the Ravens organization as well. Like they treat tenure very seriously, and John Harbaugh's been around for quite a while now. And my thing is, him and EDC are neighbors. We know that, right? They literally share a fence. I think that there's nothing. We would have to have a catastrophic meltdown. I'm saying, like, miss the playoffs, go like 5-12, something like that. That would be the only way that John Harbaugh's seat would get hot, only because of the amount of loyalty that the rest of this organization kind of devotes to him. So it's hard when you're in that situation. And I don't think Harbaugh is necessarily a bad coach, but do I think that the relationship has grown a little bit stale between him and the Ravens? I do. And that's not to say he's a bad coach, because the same thing happened with Andy Reid in Philly, right? He left Philly, went to the Chiefs, and now look, he's got 3 Super Bowls with them. So sometimes it's just time to move on. The Patriots had to move on from Bill Belichick, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And that's definitely a name I would not mind having in the conversation. But when we say, who do we get to replace John Harbaugh? Put Bill Belichick's name in that conversation.
Interesting. I see. My only thing about Bill Belichick, and Alex, I want to get your take on this too. I feel like we need a more offensive-minded head coach, somebody who's going to look towards the future and really maximize the talents that we have on offense with Lamar Jackson and whoever else we have down the line. But what are your thoughts about Bill Belichick potentially? Theoretically, who knows if that could ever happen? Well, yeah, what do you think?
That GM. That was the big reason why I left. I think New England, he wanted the GM role as well, and I don't see him getting that here. For me, man, I don't want to even talk about head coaches week 2 in the year, because I hope we can turn it around and we looked like fools and we win the Super Bowl. That's what we really want. Like, we don't want to see him go, because that means things got bad. But if we are looking ahead, I'm looking at Ben Johnson in Detroit. That's my biggest thing. I would love to see him. I think he's done great things with Goff and crew, and He's really gotten the most look at a guy, Jamison Williams, who was regarded as a bust. Now this year he's looking a lot better. And I hate to look at the Bengals, but I look at Andre Iosivas, and he has 2 touchdowns yesterday. We can't get 2 touchdowns with Rashad Bateman in 1 year. They're getting it out of like a 4th or 5th round guy from a very small school. I'm looking at stuff like that. Like, why can't that be us? And, you know, they're talking up Jermaine Burton. Why can't we talk up Devontae Walker? Oh, he's a healthy scratch. Nelson Aguilar is not even high pointing balls to get a PI. Maybe Devontae Walker high points it. That could be a PI. You know, it's just very small things that we aren't doing right, and it's been that way for forever. You know, can't develop a day 2, day 3 receiver. It's just the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to go ahead and get into kind of like some of our top takeaways from yesterday's game. I know we've kind of touched on a couple of different points right here and there, but let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into what we really took away from yesterday's game. Yolanda, I'm going to start with you here. What were your biggest takeaways from the loss yesterday?
The biggest takeaways from the loss yesterday, starting with coaching. We were severely outcoached. And if we want to kind of give the Baltimore Ravens a pass week 1 against the Chiefs, I'm not really one for it, but I can understand. And I can relax my standards just a little bit to say it is Andy Reid. So if you are going to get outcoached, let it be to someone in the ranks of an Andy Reid. Fast forward, week 2, I expected us to be more prepared for the game. Overall, both on offense and defense, we did not look prepared. It almost felt like, and I was remembering how I felt in the moment. I like to think about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling as the game is being played, because that's my true indicator of how I feel. And in the moment, I thought, did we practice this week? Because it certainly didn't look like it. So that's if I can give you my biggest takeaway, that would be number 1. Number 2 would be the way we utilize our players, both sides of the ball. It took McDonald some time to figure out how to get the defense going. But when he did, after that loss against the Dolphins 2 years ago, we saw a turnaround. And Zach Orr, I'm giving him a lot of grace. He is first-year defensive coordinator. We have to understand and we have to be patient with him. But I want to see us utilize Kyle Hamilton more. And I know he was favoring, I saw that he was favoring his right shoulder. Like maybe that was the reason that we weren't really relying heavily on him. But when we look at Kyle Hamilton, I expect him to be more of a threat on the field. Roquan Smith, it just seems like he's a different Roquan than the dominating Roquan that we saw last year. I'm seeing a difference in the players this year. Last year, it just seemed like our team was cohesive. They were together. Yes, there were bumps and bruises along the way. I'm sure there's things that go on behind closed doors that we'll never be privy to. But this team just does not seem like it is functioning together. And without that, you can't have a team be successful if everybody is not on the same page. On offense, we look horrible. Yes, Derrick Henry was able to turn it up in the second half, and that was good to see. But beyond that, like you said, Alex, we can't get Bateman involved actively for anything. Why is it that Todd Monken still continues to struggle with knowing how to properly use Likely and Andrews on the field at the same time? These are things that should have been worked out in the offseason so that when we make it to the regular season, we're in a better place. So just in general, those would be a couple. And obviously the coaching malfunctions and the blunders and not using timeouts correctly, all of that will add that to it too. But those would be my biggest takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I mean, nail on the head there. I mean, those are probably my biggest takeaways as well. I think that the biggest takeaway that I have actually has to do with the game yesterday and what John Harbaugh said today at his presser. And it was kind of like about addressing the offensive line. I want to get into that in a little bit as well. But you bring up the just kind of like the utilization of our players. And one that really stands out to me is Derrick Henry. And I touched on this a couple of minutes ago, but it seemed like in that first half, we had no idea what we were doing to get him involved. Like it just, nothing was working. You know, I think what was the stat after the first quarter? He had like 4 carries for -4 yards or something like that. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until the second half we made some adjustments. So kudos to us for making adjustments in the second half. But they were adjustments that we were talking about, Alex, me and you, on this show last week, right? So we thought we would have carried those adjustments into the first half of yesterday's game. But it was clear and evident that Todd Monken and this Ravens, they want to start off. Literally, the first play of both games, Raiders and Chiefs, was a 1st and 10, run up the middle to Derrick Henry. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And it didn't work either time, right? It didn't work either time. So I just, like you said before, Alex, like the definition of insanity, repeating the same things and expecting a different result. I thought that was, you know, an indicator of that. And it was just, Yolanda, you hit the nail on the head. But Alex, I'm going to give you some time to respond. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, she said a lot of the right things I was going to say. I'm going to go to the tight ends because I thought the first play could have been maybe a play action. You bring Andrews and Likely on the field and you hit Andrews because you feel like there'd be a lot of attention on Likely, which I thought there was. And I thought Mark looked a lot better this week. 4 catches, 51 yards. He was getting separation with defensive backs. I'm like, all right, cool. Mark is looking good. We got Likely. We give him a nice little dump off, makes 2 guys miss. And he went missing in action, you know? And then Zay Flowers. Who am I to talk about? It's basically, what's the point of having soldiers if you're not going to use them part 2? And that's basically what we're seeing.
Yep.
You know, let me pull up his stats through. He went 7 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Made some great catches, I thought. Had a great touchdown. Not seen again. And one of my biggest problems, I think, too, is it was a 2nd and 19 and it was a draw with Justice Hill. You're conservative, but there was a point where defense was looking a little shaky. You got to convert there. And it just went very conservative and kind of just how the game went for us that second half. And then Jordan Stout, 24-yard punt for a quarter for a coach that, you know, that's crucial. Based on special teams. You cannot be having 24-yard punts, dude. 20 freaking 4 yards.
Wow,
not good. Yeah. It was just anything that could have went wrong in that fourth quarter went wrong. We couldn't cover Brock Bowers, who you, Sutton, you. We were like, you know what, this guy is legit. He is the real deal, and right there, he is the real freaking deal. Devontae Adams, hard to cover him. You aren't going to see me talk about, you know, PIs because I don't think we should have been in that battle, you know, that those flags could hurt us. We should have been up by a lot more at that point. So just a very bad game at the bank. I feel bad for the fans who went to the game because it should have been a nice win. Instead, you wasted your time and energy. And, I'm sorry about that. It was just very ugly.
Real quick, I got a couple of things I want to say about what you just said, but one of the things, what was it? Oh, so about the penalties, right? The pass interference. What did you guys think about the Brandon Stevens one in the end zone with Devontae Adams? Because I see a lot of Ravens fans online saying like, oh, that was a BS call, a ticky-tacky call. Me personally, I think it was pass interference 10 times out of 10. But what did you guys think about it, though?
Agreed. I think it was. The Ravens fan in me obviously wants to say, no, that was a bad call, right? Okay. But when you look at it on tape and when you watch it, that really was pass interference.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. Because I think about it this way.
They were hand fighting.
Yeah. If someone were to do that to one of our players, if a defense were to do that to one of our offensive players, we would be screaming, that was pass interference.
Right. Yeah. If the roles were reversed, we would definitely not be having it. And when you break down that play, they were hand fighting, like you said, Alex, all the way into the end zone. But the problem was when the ball was getting close, Devontae Adams tried to like break away and Stevens held on for like that extra half a second. And I think that's what drew the flag, you know, and I agree with it being pass interference. Now, a couple of the other things I wanted to get into was the challenges, right? So the challenges, that was one of my biggest takeaways from this game. That was where I was really looking at John Harbaugh sideways on 2 different occasions. Of course, there was the first one, the Zay Flowers. Oh, was it a catch? Was it not a catch? And you look up, if you simply look up at the Jumbotron, because I'm sure they replayed on the Jumbotron in the stadium, you could see that ball, the nose of the ball hit the turf before Zay Flowers, you know, secured it. But furthermore, if John Harbaugh has guys upstairs who is advising him about, you know, what to call, when to call challenges, whatever, how are those guys not getting it right? But us at home watching it on television can get it right in an instant. Maybe CBS just gives the, you know, the broadcast viewers a better view than the guys who are actually in the stadium watching these plays as it happened. Because listen, you got guys up in that booth, Todd Monken included, right? And they're all up there. These are smart guys who make a lot of money, who are sitting in an air-conditioned room, watching the game from a bird's eye view, right? With screens everywhere. And you're telling me that they cannot deduce that that was not a catch, you know? And now I get if you're John Harbaugh, you don't have a whole lot of time to throw the challenge flag, right? You probably have maybe 15, maybe 20 seconds, something like that, to throw it before the team hurt, before the next play is run. But that's something you have to get right, because now in back-to-back games, it has come back to bite us that we did not have timeouts late in the half or late in the game, and even the second one, Alex, you brought it up earlier. Devontae Adams is your favorite wide receiver's favorite wide receiver in most cases, right? So do not disrespect him and just throw a willy-nilly challenge flag. Oh, did he get his feet? That's a guy you give the benefit of the doubt. He probably got his feet down. And if it means that we can have a minute left the clock for Lamar Jackson to make something happen, we've seen it happen before. I bring up the Lions game from a couple of years ago where we had to kind of march down really quickly and make something happen. Tucker ends up hitting a historic field goal. We'll talk about Tucker too in a little bit. But yeah, wow, I forgot about that too. But yeah, we've seen Lamar Jackson do it. If you give him time, hell, he doesn't even need timeouts. Look at what he did last week against the Chiefs. Goes 86 yards, no timeouts, with how many seconds left? Like a minute left or something like that. So I mean, it was negligence on the part of John Harbaugh in that regard. But I wanted to get you guys' take on the whole challenge situation and what was going on there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm right there with you, Sutton. And I saw a comment from Keeping It Real. He said that Harbaugh is 2-12 on challenges since 2022. At some point, you have to receive wise counsel and be able to look at what you did wrong when you called these challenges incorrectly and figure out, how do I get better so that the next game I'm not putting my team in the same situation where I've lost a timeout and it's late in the game and we have none available to us. So every time I see John Harbaugh reach for that flag, I start to get a little nervous, just to be honest. I get a little concerned when I see him, but not happy with it at all.
Yeah, I'm still frustrated with some of the challenges yesterday because, like you said, you knew they weren't going to be overturned, and just felt like, he just had an itch in his hand. He just wanted to throw that on the field. And 2-12 is a crazy stat. Since 2022, that is freaking insane. Yeah. Dre says he can't even think of the last time he won a challenge. Neither can I. And just keep it in your pocket, because more than likely you're going to be wrong. So, and you think about the final drive, if we were to have a timeout, it could have been a lot different. Could have been a whole lot different. And not saying we would have won, but would have had a better chance. Maybe Hail Mary instead of just running down the field and just hoping for the best.
Right. Yeah.
For just sure. Inexcusable stuff from Harbaugh. And somebody brings up a point here. Jeremiah says, to be fair, he does use them as timeouts sometimes, or long shot gambling. I can understand that, but at the same time, when you need because you're not going to get a challengeable play, right? When you need a timeout, right? But you have 3 timeouts guaranteed in your pocket. You have a right to those timeouts, right? So don't go gambling and lose your rights, basically is what I'm saying here. I think the whole philosophy around challenging plays needs to be kind of recalibrated for John Harbaugh, because obviously 2-12 in the last, however many seasons, I think he said, since when?
2022.
Since 2022, yeah. 2-12 on challenges since 2022. Changes need to be made there. Okay. Let's talk about what he said today, right? Yeah. In accordance with what happened yesterday on the offensive line. Specifically speaking, the right side of that offensive line, right? Which was a huge issue all day long. I took notes during the game, right? So, Yolanda, I like what you said. You have to kind of take stock of what you're thinking and what you're feeling while you're watching the game, because that is a true indicator of your true feelings. So let me see. So my first note, because I broke it down by quarter. First quarter, first note says the right side of this O-line is a real issue. That was the first note, and that was kind of like a reoccurring theme as I go throughout my notes here. I see a lot of Max Crosby, right side, Faalele. You know what I mean? It was just abysmal. And I could bring up some of the the All 22 is starting to come out now. I think the All 22 just got released like maybe a couple of hours ago. But it looks so terrible, man. And what I heard today from John Harbaugh, when asked about your guy, simply Ben Cleveland, right? When can Ben Cleveland get some run? When can he get some burn? Let me read to you guys actually what John Harbaugh said, word for word, about one Ben Cleveland. It kind of blew me away, but I want to get you guys' opinion on it. So here's his full statement. So, quote, if Ben Cleveland had earned the job at right guard, he'd be the starting right guard. You look at the tape, he did not beat out Daniel Falele or anybody. I think Ben's a good player. I like Ben. I want Ben to take the next step. What year is he in? Third year? Fourth year? He's in his fourth year, right? Ben knows what he needs to do. If he wants playing time, he knows he needs to play, and he knows he needs to practice when he gets that chance. So he says, so our evaluation right now is that Daniel outplayed Ben. That's just facts, straight up. Matter of fact, if we thought Ben had outplayed Daniel, he'd be the starting right guard. So if I see that Ben's playing better than Daniel, then Ben will be the starting right guard. So he basically just goes on as repeating himself and saying the same things over and over again in this kind of little blurb here. But what I was thinking about, because I went back and I was watching some of the All 22, and I was even watching some of the highlights back, right? And Max Crosby had a day. So, I mean, Fa'alele was part of a highlight tape, pretty much a mixtape package for Max Crosby yesterday. What I was thinking, if Ben Cleveland cannot beat out that, and when I say that, I mean that Daniel Fa'alele performance, why is Ben Cleveland on my team to begin with? Why is he on my team? Period. You know, like if he cannot outperform what we saw yesterday, what he put on tape, what Daniel Fa'alele put on tape yesterday, Ben Cleveland does not need to be on this team. And it's just as simple as that. So, and another thing is, and after this, I'll move to you, Yolanda. I want to get your take on this. If the plan is going forward to continue to trot out Daniel Fa'alele out there, my question is, how long? Like, how many games do we need to lose? And I'm not saying that we lost this game specifically because of Daniel Fa'alele. I'm not saying that. But I think a big reason that we lost this game is because our offense could never get any rhythm from the very first quarter. We were never controlling that game offensively. The only time it really felt like we were was the opening drive of the second half. But outside of that, it never felt like we were controlling the game offensively. So my question to John Harbaugh is, how many games do we have to lose? How many times does this have to impact the game in order for you to pivot, right? And another thing I'm thinking is, you know, how long is the leash for Daniel Fa'alele? Because the longer you let this go along, the warmer your seat's going to get, Harbaugh, because we're going to remember what you're saying on today, September 16, 2024. You said that Ben Cleveland did not beat out Fa'alele. Therefore, you know, that probably means we're sticking with Fa'alele. But I want to move to you, Yolanda. What were you thinking about the whole offensive line situation and then what John Harbaugh said about it today?
I have spoken at length about this offensive line from the moment we let go of Zeitler and Moses. And I know Morgan Moses was a bit of a mixed bag. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. Some weeks we felt like, is he the ops? Like, what is he doing out there? But I would certainly prefer to have veteran presence on this O-line that is just inexperienced and almost borderline inexcusable, particularly on the right side. And the fact that I don't feel like we ever had a plan to replace veterans. We could have gotten a Dalton Reisner. Yes, I know he's a starting left guard. However, last year and over this offseason, he has taken snaps at both right and left guard position. So there's that. We had an opportunity to solidify this offensive line and we just didn't take advantage of it. Now we're stuck because I've seen people say, let's find someone, bring them in for the offensive line. At this late stage, what team is going to relinquish offensive linemen? When you are talking about the premium position of the trenches, it is almost impossible to find quality players now. We needed to have acted a long time ago. And the fact that we sat around with our hands, behind our heads and just kind of relaxing and kicking our feet up and not having a care in the world, now we're seeing the fruits of it. And how does that look? It looks terrible. It looks like Chris Jones making a mockery of our right side. I want that side. Put me over there. Yeah. Because I'm gonna have my way over there. Same thing with Max Crosby. We had no defense. We had no answer for him. And we look awful. That is the hard fact. That is the reality of who we are as a team. And I mean, I'm not going to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye and just pretend and sweep it under the rug. But what I heard today from John Harbaugh doubling down on his position, Daniel Falele is it. I don't know if we're watching something different, if their film looks different than what it looks like on Sundays when I'm watching on television. But what I see from Falele is we have a huge, massive giant on the field. That's great. Size is not a skill. You've got to be able to move your feet. You've got to be able to, protect your gap. You've got to be able to get after that defender. You've got to be able to be that wall around Lamar. And clearly, I'm going to say to this point and to this time, Daniel Falele, you failed miserably. Pat McCary, you're on the fence too, buddy. So it's not looking good for us because we face the Buffalo Bills. We face Dallas Cowboys next, then the Bills, and then Cincinnati. I can easily see us going 0-4 to start this season.
Yeah, that's we are staring down 0-4 if we don't get our stuff together. Alex, before you go, I do want to say one thing about Max Crosby and kind of like just the confidence that he had in destroying this offensive line yesterday. There was a moment in the game, second quarter, right? And this moment kind of is flying under the radar, but Marlon Humphrey got the pick. You guys remember that. And right after Marlon Humphrey picked off that football, if you're watching the broadcast, you see Gardner Minshew jogging off to the sidelines.
Yeah.
And who stops him? Max Crosby stops Gardner Minshew. And he looks him in the eye and he like holds him there for a second. He's like, look, I know you just threw a pick, but we got this. Like they have nothing for us today. So we will get the ball back for you. Like I have all that spoke volumes to me in that moment. I almost knew we were cooked right then. And this is in the second quarter. Yeah. So I'm like, oh yeah, Crosby, he's not going to stop. He has the confidence. He knows that they cannot stop him. Like mano a mano, Makari can't stop him. Mano a mano, Falele cannot stop him. He's way too slow, right? They were killing Falele on the stunts, killing him. He's not quick enough. He's not quick enough to rotate over and pick up that stunt. He's just not, Right? So they were killing Falele on the stunts. It was crazy. It was crazy. He's not quick enough. Am I getting some feedback here? Rotate over and pick up that stunt.
Just what you just said.
I'm keeping it real. That Harbaugh is too.
Oh. Everything good? All right, there we go. In 2021, the same thing happened. Max Crosby actually dominated this line. Alejandro Villanueva at right tackle. Like nothing has changed in those 3 years. We still haven't built a wall around Lamar. And we don't talk about Ben Cleveland. You know why he didn't beat out the right guard position? Because he wasn't played as a right guard in preseason. He was played as a center. He's being played as a center, not a right guard. So obviously, he's not going to win a position that he didn't even get a chance to play for. And he started in week 17 and 18 last year against the Dolphins and against the Steelers. Think about the Dolphins. They had a healthy Bradley Chubb, and he went down in the fourth quarter of that game. Week 17 Wilkins last year. Against the Dolphins, they had the Steelers, and they had obviously the great line they have. He had 64 pass blocking snaps and 2 pressures allowed, and 85.9 PFF grade at right guard. And we're not going to use him. He hasn't beat out Daniel Falele. You're lying to your face. There's obviously something behind the scenes that we don't know about.
And it's a doghouse thing.
You don't put up those type of numbers against 2 good D lines and not get a starting position. So I'm not going to get fooled by he didn't play well enough to beat Daniel Falele. It's something else.
Yeah, they can miss me with that. Yeah, man. So, okay, let's go ahead and move on. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the live chat. We got a lot of people in here. Giving shouts out to Yolanda. Big shout out to our guest today, Ravens Talk with Yolanda. She is in the house here. We got about 100 people watching live. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. Appreciate that. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and make sure you go ahead over to Ravens Talk with Yolanda's channel as well and subscribe to her too, because she's putting out content so consistently, and it's high quality stuff. So make sure you guys check her out. We got Lunch Break Hot Take in the building. What's going on, fellas? Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me see. DWAS with the super chat donation. Thank you so much, DWAS, making it rain here on episode 263 of the Purple Rain podcast. Says, what's your opinion on Trey Blake yesterday? Oh, yeah. What were you thinking, Alex?
I mean, okay, if we're talking about one flag I thought that was really bad was the Matabike one. That was not a face mask.
Oh, yeah. But they said they would have gotten no Jabo for that either way. Remember?
Yeah, I guess so.
So
After that, I really can't get upset about anything else because PI was PI.
Now that Lamar late hit out of bounds.
Technically, still in bounds. He gave himself up, but I think I can't even say if that was somebody wearing 15 in red because Roquan hit him out of bounds last week and they didn't get the flag. But
I think that if it's like an Aaron Rodgers, he gets that flag. Great. I think it's certain quarterbacks.
Josh Allen would flop. He would freaking
Josh
his
Allen
body.
He would flop. He would flop so hard that they would have to give it to him. But I think if it's like an Aaron Rodgers, maybe like a Matthew Stafford, maybe like a Jared Goff, somebody like more traditional pocket passers, when they get out of the pocket, the refs tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. If it gets close to the sideline, and I tweeted this yesterday, I said, for a quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers, for example, if he's like kind of tiptoeing, towards the sideline and quote unquote giving himself up and he takes a hit, they're going to throw that flag because it's seen as like a savvy veteran move. You know what I mean? He's taking advantage of what he sees there. And, those guys, these quarterbacks get too close to the boundary. You got to lay off. That's what the commentators would say, something like that. But when it's Lamar Jackson, it's seen more so as like, okay, he's seen more as a runner, naturally like a runner. So when he takes that late hit, it just it doesn't come across, it doesn't register as egregious or in any way to these referees. So it just is what it is there. I thought that was kind of unfair, but overall opinion on the refereeing, I can't say that it was terrible. I do think that, again, the one with Nnamdi Madubuike, I'm sorry, he that one was definitely like, okay, you can't just go upstairs and clearly see that you didn't touch his face mask. Again, the Ojabo thing, they probably would have gotten him for that, but I just like to see them get the call right, just for the integrity of the game sometimes, like when things just go kind of like, when they make a wrong call and they just kind of like float past it like nothing happened, that I lose faith in the NFL slowly but surely every time that happens. But what were your opinions on the refereeing yesterday, Yolanda?
I've long since given up on fair refereeing, and I feel like at this point there are a lot of calls that I don't agree, to which I don't agree. But knowing that, I think what we need to do as an organization, as the team, is realize that there are going to be the unfair calls. There are going to be the missed calls. It's just not going to be equal. It's not going to be equitable. So in knowing that our level of play needs to be that much higher and that much greater to overcompensate for the lack of fairness, if you please, in play calling. I'm sorry, not play calling, but in terms of refereeing.
Yeah, totally agree there. D-Wa, shout out to you. He's been our kind of like on referee watch for us all season. So shout out to him, always keeping us abreast on, who's reffing our games, how they did, things like that. So yeah, big shout out to you, bro. And thank you for donating again.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to bring up, nobody really is talking about this either, but right before halftime, right when we were driving down and we kicked that field goal, remember when we decided to kick the field goal with 7 seconds left on the 14-yard line? Did you guys think we should have taken one more shot at the end zone there, or did you like the field goal call?
I like the field goal call, and the only reason I do, the primary reason I do, is because with this shaky offensive line, like anything could have gone wrong, and I didn't want to risk it. If we had a different O-line, I would probably say, let's try again. Let's see if we can let's try it one more time, take one more snap, and then if we can't get it, turn it over to Justin Tucker. But I have to look at our current situation, being that it is what it is right now, to risk an interception, risk a turnover, a fumble, any of that, I think would have been irresponsible. So I was okay with going for it with 7 seconds, or kicking the field goal with 7 seconds left.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's funny because if we didn't challenge in the first quarter or first half, we would have had another timeout. So there could have been your shot at the end zone we're talking about. Because if Lamar gets sacked or if he completes a pass and they don't get out of bounds, there's 2 seconds left, maybe 1 or 2 seconds left. We can, get that 3 while having a chance at the end zone. But I liked it for all the reasons you said. And, he could have gotten rushed, intentional grounding, 10-second runoff. We're out of 3 points. I like taking the 3 points right there.
Okay, let's shift a little bit here. What did you guys think about the fact that the Ravens held the Raiders to less than 30 yards rushing and still lost this game? The Raiders completely abandoned the run in the fourth quarter, and Gardner Minshew was just slinging it all over the field. Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams. Brock Bowers had 9 catches for 98 yards. And I said, like you said, Alex, I said last week on the show in our preview episode, this is a guy we're going to have to keep in check. Because in week 1, he was building that confidence. Yeah, exactly. Week 1, he was building that confidence. And I think in week 2, when he had that big catch down the field and then almost scored, I thought he scored on that play, to be honest with you. I thought he got in. But that proved to me, like, yeah, this kid, Brock Bowers, he's the next up tight end, big tight end in this league. I can definitely see that. He was awesome in college, and he was awesome in yesterday's game too. So that wasn't good. But I want to talk about some silver linings as well that came out of this game. I'll go ahead and start. One big thing for me was the pass rush, right? I mean, the pass rush we saw yesterday that woke me up. And one name that I have to speak, and I've been critical of this guy for years now. I've called him a training camp warrior, the MVP of training camp, all the stuff, right? But Odafe Owe, man, he had a game yesterday, okay? And I've said for a long time that Odafe Owe is not a bad football player. He just does not get the sacks that you need at that premium position that is defensive end, right? If you're not getting sacks as an edge rusher, I mean, all the other things that you can do, pursuit, gap integrity, setting the edge, things like that, that's all wonderful. But if you cannot get to the quarterback on a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 7, and in that drive effectively, I mean, what are we paying you premium edge rusher money for, right? And that's what those guys want. So 2.5 sacks from Odafe Owe. He also had a one play in the first quarter where he just completely blew up a Raiders screen. It was nasty. I don't know if you guys have seen that play too. But, man, I love what I saw from Odafe Owe. Kyle Van Noy, I mean, 10 days after a fractured orbital bone, and you get back out on that field and you notch a sack and you actually have a pretty good game, that hats off to Kyle Van Noy. He was one of the unsung heroes, I would say, from that game. But the pass rush overall, I really like what I saw, even in the interior, Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones, man. Just an absolute mover of men.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. If you watch some of that tape from that game, crazy stuff. But what was you guys' assessment of the pass rush? Yolanda, I'll start with you.
I agree 100%. I was so elated to see Odafe Owe put it all together. It's one thing to be able to create and generate that pressure on the quarterback. That's good. You're halfway there. Now, can you make it home? And he did that yesterday, and I was so happy for him. Couldn't be happier for him. And as you mentioned, rightly so, Kyle Van Noy, that is a remarkable story in and of itself. The fact that he came out there and was a huge contribution to the game. Not that he just came out there and sat around and we're like, oh, poor thing, he's still injured. Like, he came out there and said, I'm ready to play, and he showed it. So hats off to him for just being so tough and really wanting to be there for his team that he did, and he showed up. Because honestly, going into the season or in the, earlier in the off season, I said, I'm a little concerned about the edge rush. I'm a little concerned about our ability to, after we didn't sign Jadeveon Clowney, I'm a little concerned with what we're going to do. And then we have, Adisa Isaac, question mark. What's happening with him? I didn't know. But I'm seeing really, and then David Ajabo wasn't cleared to play until very late into the season. So there were a lot of question marks. And I think that that's one of our strong points to this defense, because certainly pass defense has not really been all that great, especially in this last game. But yeah, very happy with our edge rushers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and our run defense, I think, is top in the league, which is, I thought that was a worry going in. Obviously, it's 2 games. We played Zamir White, and Pacheco only had 48 yards, I think, last week. But you can only, beat what's in front of you next week. Ezekiel Elliott and their Rico Dowdle and their whole running back by committee. Our real test week 4 against James Cook, who had a really good Thursday night, 3 touchdowns. I'm looking forward to that. But, yeah, this pass rush has really surprised me. I think 5 sacks yesterday. Was not expecting that whatsoever. The first play, really setting the tone. I'm like, all right, cool. It's going to be one of those games where we're going to make Gardner Minshew, run for his life, maybe throw a couple of picks, and wasn't that. But I was, happy with what I saw. And then I guess for another positive, wasn't really many. Like you said, the way we were using Derrick Henry in the second half, the check down, we finally got to see him in the second gear. And you got to get out of his way because when he's running, it's hard to take him down. They push him out of bounds. And that one run where we finally got a Derrick Henry stiff arm, that honestly, I jumped out of my seat. I was waiting to see that. And then, very little snaps and 10 minutes left in the game. I think ESPN brought it up today. I think I screenshotted the stat they have of Derrick Henry in the last 10 minutes. Oh, rushes in the last 10 minutes. He had 2 against the Chiefs for 7 yards and 1 against the Raiders for 5 yards. So in the last 10 minutes of these past 2 games, he's had 3 carries for 12 yards. You pay $20 million for running back, and you don't use him.
And it's really the Ravens' fault. It's the Ravens' fault because early in the game, they get discouraged from using him because they're misusing him early in the games, right? And then in the second half, when they finally turn it around, oh, man, yeah. I want to go ahead and get into a super chat donation here from Darius. What's going on, Darius? Appreciate you for making it rain here on this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. Says, Harbaugh is one of the reasons Lamar won't win the Super Bowl. I'm tired of seeing Lamar run for his life in idiotic decisions and play calling. Whew. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. I would say it's a hot take, but I think that a lot of Ravens fans would agree right now, and just based on how we're all feeling about John Harbaugh. But what do you take from this, Alex? What do you think?
It's definitely growing that way. You haven't really reached a Super Bowl. We haven't reached one yet. Made to the championship game last year, but even then 6 carries. The same problems keep on happening. We talked about it with the Titans and Greg Roman. Now it's the Chiefs and Todd Monken. It's the same thing happening with different coordinators, which I don't want to put too much on Monken because I'm just led to believe there's a bigger philosophy behind the scenes that's being led by the head coach. And you can't really change that when his mind is already set, i.e. Ben Cleveland and Daniel Falele. You really can't change his mind when he has it set. So that's what I'm looking at. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I agree with you, Darius. The problem is we cannot bring in Derrick Henry, pay him the big bucks, but yet Lamar Jackson leads our team in rushing yards by a mile. That's a problem. I don't want our quarterback out there scrambling for his life, and these are not designed QB runs either. This is Lamar having to make something out of nothing, extend the play, and his body has been being put out there on the line every single time because we're not utilizing our personnel properly, or because we have an O-line that's just not capable and it's not getting the job done, especially on the right side.
Yeah, it's Harbaugh is, I think he is, I can agree with you, Darius. He is one of the reasons that if Lamar doesn't win a Super Bowl, I could definitely say that Harbaugh played a part in that because, and somebody brought this up on Twitter earlier today. They said that the Ravens, and Mike Tomlin has famously said this about the Ravens don't play 4 quarters of football, right? You can tell in a lot of these types of games where we lose late, we just completely fall apart in the fourth quarter. And we've seen it so many times. And that I think that's coaching. That's coaching, if anything, right there. And like you said, Alex, we've seen it with Todd Monken. We've seen it with Greg Roman and Marty Morno. I can go all the way down the list, right?
Yep.
The common denominator is John Harbaugh, right? And what is it? What's the stat? 2-3 playoff wins in the last decade, something like that. That's unacceptable. And we'll see what the Ravens decide to do going forward. But like I said, I just think that John Harbaugh is just so entrenched within this organization, and they're so loyal to him, right? His tenure goes crazy there. He's not going anywhere unless there's some sort of catastrophic meltdown from the Ravens. Like I said, like a 5-12, missed the playoff season, something like that. But yeah, I appreciate your super chat donation, Darius. I do want to get into one more silver lining that I took from yesterday's game.
Yeah.
I felt like as bad as the offensive line was in spots, I think we did get one answer out of yesterday's game, and that answer comes from rookie Roger Rosengarten, right? So early in that game, we saw Patrick McCarry. He was getting beat really badly And it was funny because in our pregame stream that you and I had, Alex, I was saying that, Macari, he's kind of like our utility guy on the line. You can put him pretty much anywhere. He's going to be serviceable. He's not going to be too great. He's not going to be too bad. But yesterday, it looked like early on, like, no, if we keep Macari out there, it's going to be a long Sunday. And it was. But when we put Roger Rosengarten out there, it kind of alleviated some of that pressure that was coming from that right side. So I think that was one of the answers that we got out of the offensive line play yesterday. I think that Roger Rosengarten should be the right tackle going forward. Now, Harbaugh said today that they're probably still going to be rotating those guys there, Macari and Rosengarten. And to a degree, I get it. Rosengarten is still a rookie, but man, you got to throw him out there. You got to throw him out there. I mean, you spend draft capital. What was it, second round pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rosengarten was our second round, yeah. Yep. A second round pick, you spend that high of a draft capital on somebody, you have to get them out there, throw them into the fire, and just see if they can sink or swim. And because that's where we are at this point in the season. I mean, that right side of that line, it needs some answers, and I thought we got some yesterday from Rosengarten.
Yeah, agree with you there.
Yeah,
I did well against Max Crosby.
Yeah. Certainly.
Let me see. Mod Roof says Roger needs the reps. Absolutely. Let me see. And then also one thing I'm gonna bring up here, KLA Sports says seeing J.K. Dobbins get 100+ yards on less than 20 carries makes you realize Roman wasn't the biggest issue. Interesting. Okay, I think that's interesting, KLA. I do want to bring up one thing before we wrap up here. Zay Flowers, right? Zay Flowers was like you said, Alex, 7 catches for 91 yards, a touchdown, but didn't really see too much of Zay Flowers being utilized after that touchdown. And after the game, I think like sometime like in the middle of the night last night, Zay Flowers took to Twitter and he reposted something that said, this is the second game in a row where he's had a big first half and then they move away from using him in the later in the game, something like that. He reposted that. And I thought that was troubling, to say the least, because me and you, Alex, we can both remember when we were on this podcast. I can't remember what episode it was years ago when Hollywood had said what he said about, the soldiers never being used, that sort of thing. And a couple months later, Hollywood was off the team. So I'm not saying that Zay Flowers is kind of having thoughts like maybe I can't really do what I want to do with this Ravens team. But if you're making the conscious decision to put that, like your feelings like that out into the public space, Zay Flowers is not dumb. He knows what he's doing when he does that. What did you guys take away from Zay Flowers reposting that tweet?
I don't really like it because I feel almost like it's to a point you're airing dirty laundry. Yes, we can all see that you weren't really utilized a lot in the second half. We can all see it. So it's not like, well, it was a secret. No, it was on full display. But I think what I would prefer is to keep whatever issues they have kind of in-house as opposed to leaking your feelings about it to the outside, because now you're letting everyone know there's trouble in the land between, at least that's what I'm interpreting. There's trouble in the land here between wide receiver, quarterback, or wide receiver, front office. And that just doesn't seem to bode well for keeping the continuity amongst the team. But I can certainly understand on the opposite end of the pendulum, you're feeling frustrated. And especially if you've had conversations, if Zay has gone and had conversations with either Lamar and or Monken or whoever, and is not really seeing a change there. I can see it both ways, but personally, I would have preferred it not to have been reposted, but I can certainly understand the frustration.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of it either. I don't like the dirty laundry being aired, because then, where there's smoke, there's fire, unfortunately. And we're not that team. We haven't, really dealt with a lot of that. And obviously the whole soldiers thing, we knew that was mainly directed at Greg Roman. This doesn't feel like it's Todd Monken, I'll be honest with you. It felt different. And yeah, I mean, I hope we turn it around, go 2-2 these next 2 games. And then, just go on a run from there. I want us to, to be winning, not to be losing, have these conversations, because it's not fun. But next time, just keep it in-house and don't even retweet it at that point. Just take your phone, act like you want to retweet it, and just close your phone or something. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, like you guys were saying, it hurts chemistry too. Like that's just not good for the locker room. I mean, because all the other guys, they have social media. They pay attention to what's going on on the internet and whatnot, and they can see that. And Lamar Jackson, I'm sure he knows, he's seen it as well, and they've probably had a conversation and talk things out together. But I think that it is more of kind of like a shot towards the coaching staff. I will say that, and that is yeah, it's just not. It doesn't bode well, like you said, Yolanda. But okay. We've got our venting session. We've got it out. We've got it out of our system. At least not all of it. It's going to take a while to still process this loss. I'm still processing it, to be honest with you. It's been a little over 24 hours. So, yeah, we're still not done processing it. And we'll have a lot more to talk about, of course, on the next episode and episodes in the future as well. But Yolanda, I want to thank you so much for coming out to this episode and joining us as a guest. We thought you were awesome. You gave us some great insight on how you were feeling about the Ravens, and the crowd loves you as well. You got so much love here from the Purple Rain family. That's how you know you're part of the Rain Gang family. So we appreciate you so much, Yolanda. And if you don't mind, you can stick around while we wrap the show up.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me, Purple Rain Podcast. You guys are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you to everyone who came out tonight and joined us with us in this vent session, because I certainly needed it. It was therapeutic. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And let us know where we can find you at.
You can find me here on YouTube at Ravens Talk with Yolanda, where I just keep it 100%, share my thoughts, my opinions, and I welcome yours. You can also find me on X at Yolanda ESQ 1908.
Okay. All right. Okay, look, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show, guys. We hate to get out of here. It's been an hour and 6 minutes, but Monday Night Football is about to start in a little bit. I know some people want to watch the Eagles versus Falcons play, so we're not going to get in the way of that. Again, we appreciate Yolanda so much for coming on. Again, you can go on YouTube, type in Ravens Talk with Yolanda. Her channel is going to be the first thing that pops up, okay? And then, of course, on Twitter as well, the Yolanda ESQ 1908. Shout out to the AKAs. Yeah, and okay. You can follow us on Instagram at the Purple Rain Podcast, like you see down below. You can follow me on X or Instagram at Sutton Def, and you can follow this guy on X at SimplyAS10 and on Instagram at SimplyAS10.prod. And like we led the episode with, and like you can see on the bottom of the screen, Manscaped is our sponsor. I'm actually wearing the shirt right now. It's actually a very nice shirt, very comfortable, right? But yeah, you can go on manscaped.com. You can use our code PRP. You're going to get yourself 20% off plus free international shipping on all sorts of products like this beautiful, what do we get, Alex? Show them again. The Scalp Buffer, and then we also have the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. And of course, there's so many other products on manscaped.com as well. The Lawnmower 5.0 is out. So if you need a little trim, you need to trim up the edges, things like that, make sure you go on Manscaped, use our code PRP, get yourself 20% off. All right. Thank you guys so much again for coming out to this episode 263 of the Purple Rain Podcast. Love you guys from the bottom of my heart. And with that being said, I'm going to let my guy Alex take us out.
Thank you very much for coming through to episode 263 of the Purple Pain Podcast. As always, stay positive, test negative.
Yes, and never, ever, ever forget, even on the rainiest days, to call God. It's been episode 263 of the Purple Rain Podcast. We're going to catch you guys in the next one.